Hello and welcome, everyone. We'll get started in just 1 minute. Hello and welcome, everyone. We are here this evening for an information session about the OCEAN program. So we're going to have a short presentation and then we will have quite a bit of time for some questions. We're doing this in a webinar format because we are recording this to YouTube. So this way none of the participants' videos will be recorded, but you can raise your hand and I think I can unmute you so that you can share a question that way, or you can type questions in the Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen. So I am going to introduce our Superintendent, Sandy Gessner, who's going to get us started. And Sandy's going to remember to unmute herself. That's a good way to start a webinar.
Oh, when you Zoom too much, this is one of the side effects, is you just start talking to your computer at all times. Welcome, everybody. We're really glad to have you here tonight, and we appreciate you taking the time. We know that for a long time, OCEAN has been a favored program of parents who have chosen, they want choice. They want choice in our district. And so OCEAN has been around for many years, and it is considered an alternative learning experience by the state. Now that we are transitioning to our reopening plan with many more options looking to be using more remote learning and alternative learning, it's clear that some of our families are very interested in thinking about what OCEAN might mean for them. So tonight we just wanted to take a special night away from the other webinars we've been doing and help everyone dig in a little bit more, learning about OCEAN and the staff and what they can offer, what it is and what's the type of student that really succeeds well in OCEAN. And our entire staff is here tonight. That's how much we cared and we wanted to get this right. So that's a pretty exciting thing. We can go ahead to the first slide. So in our choices for this upcoming school year, we have several. So OCEAN is amongst the menu choices that we've asked families to choose for their own children. Port Townsend, I'll just go through this quickly, most of you know this. Port Townsend will be mostly in a distance learning modality, and yet they will be bringing some cohorts of students onto campus, specifically those who need more at this time. And that can be for a variety of reasons. We know that we want to focus on our incoming freshmen who kind of got left in that transition from their 8th grade to their 9th grade year. We also have students who may need to work on credit retrieval, again, based on last year. So, and then we have students with disabilities and students who receive other services that can access as well. At Blue Heron, Blue Heron and Salish Coast are using our blended model, and the blended model allows for 2 days of in-person, face-to-face instruction in small cohorts. And so what that looks like is if I am in the first cohort, I will be attending class Monday and Thursday on campus, or if I'm in another cohort, I would be attending Tuesday and Friday in person. This again allows us to keep the amount of students that are on campus into small cohorts. At Blue Heron Middle School, the cohort will stay primarily in one of the classrooms and the different teachers will transition to them. There are some exceptions, I believe, for STEM and for PE. Then Blue Heron Middle School students also have a choice of the distance learning only, and that will be coordinated with all the content teachers that are at Blue Heron. Salish Coast looks very similar to Blue Heron Middle School. Again, the cohorting model for blended learning allows us to keep in the guidelines recommended by the Department of Health and our local health agency. But if that's not comfortable, then families also still have a chance to just do distance learning only. And then we come to Ocean, which has a special little place in our district, and that's what we're here to talk to you about tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Kirsten Bledsoe, who is the counselor at Blue Heron, but she's also a counselor for Ocean. And she has a depth of knowledge about Ocean that I think few have in our district. So Kirsten, if you would take over on this slide and the key points about what makes Ocean, Ocean.
All right, good evening, everyone. Yes, I think one of the key things that makes Ocean Ocean is the parent partnership component, and really practicing that teachers and students and parents are all working together to meet the students' learning goals. And that means that teachers are providing instruction, but families also provide instruction at home under the direction of the teacher to meet the individual written student learning plan and all the state and district requirements. Teachers are there to definitely provide curriculum and work schedules for families, as well as sometimes materials. But there's a big chunk of a student's time that's spent at home with their parents. And so there needs to be that responsibility for whatever happens at home and making time to do all the learning activities designed by the teacher. And the heart of the program, I believe, is really that monthly conference between all three of you, meaning the parents, the students, and the teacher, to really look at progress of the student and setting learning goals for the next month. And that is a required component of every alternative learning experience program. So for those of you who are have been Ocean families, you know that there is a part of your child's week that is spent on campus with the Ocean teachers. That's the part that next year, due to our situation, will be distance and online. So the teachers are still providing that instruction and meeting with students, but it will need to be remote and online. For the most part, we will want to have some in-person options. So the at-home part can then look very similar to what it has looked for you in previous years. And we'll talk about that more for families who are not familiar with Ocean in just a moment. For blending Ocean program with classes at either Blue Heron or at the high school, like families have done in previous years, that's also going to be a little bit trickier this year. And so we're asking that any family who feels like they need to look at taking a class outside of Ocean, please talk with me about that. And most likely we can only offer you the online options at either of those places, Blue Heron or the high school. And then there will, as I mentioned before, we definitely want to have some in-person contact, but for Ocean, it will be much more focused on academic support and the social emotional piece, not so much on that teachers will provide new instruction, although we are exploring if there are potentially some classes where we can provide safe cohorting. And so we will definitely let families know of that option once we know our true student numbers and what all the class needs are for everybody. And then of course, students with IEPs, depending on IEP goals and some other targeted intervention, we want to try and have that in-person support available for them.
So we're going to invite our two Ocean current teachers. We have Daniel Malotsky and Bob Kirk joining us. So I'll invite you guys to unmute yourselves and start your video. and they're going to share just a little bit. We put together this slide because we thought some families might be wondering, how is Ocean just different from distance learning? And there's some really important differences. So Bob and Daniel are going to share a little bit for families who want to understand what Ocean usually looks like and then how it's going to look next year.
Hello.
Thank you. I'm Daniel Malotsky, and hopefully you guys can see me. And Bob, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Bob Kirk. I had my picture. I was up there.
Okay. I'm going to start. I'm just going to talk a little bit about Ocean. Ocean is, has an acronym for Opportunity, Community, Experience, Academics, and Navigation, navigating through life. Part of our program, we have monthly family parent-teacher conferences with students involved. We'll work on reviewing all the work that the students have been doing, going over their goals, setting goals for the next month. Oops. I lost that slide. Thank you. Here we go. Parents at home will keep weekly learning logs, also known as timesheets. And if you decide to be in the program, either myself or Bob will go over them with you. And it's a good system for you to know how much time you're putting in on each subject. We do have a required weekly contact, two-way contact with students and teachers that during the distance time can be met by attending a Zoom class or a phone call. There's many different ways. We will have online, synchronous online instruction. We'll also have asynchronous activities. We're going to try and put together some in-person academic support based on our numbers and different things that will we're not exactly sure how that will look yet. Kirsten already mentioned families provide the at-home instruction based on under the direction of the teachers. We provide families with math curriculum. We provide them with language arts, social studies, science assignments and things to do. So you'll have everything you need to know. You'll have a work schedule, so you know what you need to complete to keep up. Everything is individualized through the monthly conferences. So your student's criterion for success will be different from another student because everyone's an individual. And with our small program, we really focus on individualizing and keeping everyone on their learning edge. See, this is an alternative education program. So we try and we're very flexible. Yeah, I'm very excited about this year. I think it's gonna be, we've learned a lot last year with our quick startup, but I think we can do a lot better with the distance learning. And I think it's gonna be a fantastic year. Bob, is there anything else you think I missed?
Gosh, you about covered it, Daniel. Yeah, if you were with us near the end of the year last year, we're using the same thing that everybody knows. Well, Google Classrooms, but there will be some we're working in person, and there'll be some in person and contact, just like we've had in the past, very similar. So it's not there is some differences if you look across the way here on distance learning. And if you have any questions, they'll be, if you're new in Ocean, when we sit down that first week, we're going to be going over that learning plan with you, so you'll understand.
Yeah, and we will be contacting everyone the week before school starts, the week of August 31st. Everybody who's on the list or who wants to, who's been enrolled and wants to re-enroll, or any new families that would like. Kirsten, can you think of anything we missed in particular?
I just wanted to highlight the difference to distance learning. As you can see, there's a lot more, in distance learning, your child really needs to be involved on a daily basis. It's still a daily schedule, just like in a traditional setting, or if we could be in the school building. And then, in distance learning, 100%, really the teachers are responsible for the teaching. And of course, you as family are supporting more with getting, your students online and helping with curriculum and assignments, which is very different than a commitment to actually provide and deliver some of the instruction and do some of the activities there. And so distance learning is a lot more teacher directed and really working on the traditional curriculum, and then Ocean is more related to a flexible plan for learning, and that can also be a flexible schedule of learning other than the live instruction that's provided by the teachers each week. That is going to be on a schedule, and that will happen, on certain days and times.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, I think we're ready for the next slide or whatever's next.
Yeah, and we want to, or do you want to do that, Daniel? Go ahead.
Sure, it doesn't matter. K8 is, we have learning logs or timesheets, and for people who've been in the program, there's a minimum of 28 hours on the log. We want 5 hours a week in the 4 core subjects, and then you have 4 hours of PE and 4 hours of art, and that equals 28 hours. For the high school, it's 30 hours, 5 hours each per class. As it says up there, electives can be asynchronous and independent for the high school. So, yeah.
And I think the biggest thing we wanted everybody to realize is that when you're thinking about 5 hours a week per subject of that instruction and learning time, 1.5 hours is typically provided by the Ocean teacher in live synchronous instruction. The rest of the time is that time that you as a parent put in to do the instruction at home for the activities directed by the teacher. So that's where, we just wanted you to realize the time commitment that is involved. And then also one addition to the high school is that, the 30 hours is really for a 6 credit load. And then depending on needs of students, sometimes students might have 7 classes or just a little bit different load. And so then that number is adjusted. And all of them are really considered a minimum of those hours, because sometimes, just like with additional homework and other settings, some things might take a little bit longer, some things might need to be practiced more, but that's really the minimum hours of learning that we need to do in the Ocean program.
Yeah, and we're committed to helping each individual, at the high school level and at the K-8 level succeed and really push themselves forward and become the best version of themselves that they can be.
Nice.
Do you want to speak to this one, Kirsten, or you want me to?
Oh, I'm going to speak to this one.
Oh, perfect.
Thanks so much. I'm Shelby McMeekin, and I'm the Director of Special Services. And as Daniel and Bob have emphasized, really the Ocean program is based on that flexibility and that partnership with parents. And that will not be any different as we approach special education services or services for students with disabilities. Once you are enrolled, we will be assigning you an individual case manager, and services will be provided with grade level appropriate groups of students. So we are going to do our very best to create a good program that meets all the needs of both families and ensure that all kids make progress. And I wanted to make sure that you had my contact information here. If you have any questions about this, please reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
So we've left lots of time for questions. I see some people have already put some questions in the question and answer at the bottom, which is great. So we'll go through some of those. So I'll monitor that. And I see there's a couple in the chat. And if you wanted to talk, you can raise your hand, and I think I can click a button and allow you to talk too if you prefer that over typing. But we'll just get started with a couple of questions that people have already put out. So we'll do a couple that are first just for the teaching team. Probably Daniel or Bob or maybe Kirsten can jump in and help as well. So there's a couple of questions about curriculum. So They want to know what curriculum is used and if parents can choose curriculum or bring in their own curriculum for some subjects. I know, Daniel, maybe can you talk a little bit more about the curriculum?
Yeah, so the curriculum varies by age group. We have a K-12 program, so I'm not sure what specifically they're asking about. In the high school, we have, you know, the teachers have assignments. We have our curriculum is based on, you know, the state and national standards depending on the subject. With the K-8 students, we provide curriculum. We also, if parents have selected curriculums and we check them out, once we've vetted them, they've used them. So people can choose to do their own curriculums. Typically, in language arts social studies, which I do K-8, we do 3 big themes per year, one in the fall, one in the winter, and one in the spring. And almost everyone engages in that because that learning informs all the kids. And so it's a way that the kids can have discussions and work with that. For instance, we ended the year last year doing a big unit on immigration and the history of immigration in America. And many people, the younger kids focused on their family stories. The 8th graders worked on their family stories of immigration, but also the history of immigration, what was happening. So it's hard to say exactly which curriculum we use or what, depending on the age group, but I would be glad to talk to anyone and go and share with them the curriculum we have, or Kirsten can. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions about staffing, Sandy, so you might be the best person to respond to these. So a couple questions, just like right now there's just these 2 staff members here. Is there a maximum number of kids we can take in the Ocean program? Or are they going to get overwhelmed? So I thought maybe you could just respond about our plans for that.
You bet. We are doing our final parent survey, and that closes on the 19th. At that time, we will, well, by the 20th then, and 24th will be, all of those days will be big work days for us. But then we will have, of our 1,200 students that attend our school district, we will have some final numbers on who will be attending Ocean, and then we can staff sufficiently at that time. So we're in the process.
So someone had a question about our distance learning versus Ocean slides. So I'll see if I can figure out how to go back there. So their question was, does the Ocean column represent what will happen or what this model has been in the past? I don't know if Kirsten or Daniel, you might be able to respond to, like, is this the Ocean model as it's always been or just for this next year?
I would say it's been like this. Many of the pieces are part of the Ocean program. Sorry, any year. The biggest part is just what that live instruction looks like, and that this year it will need to be online or remote for the most part. And that really, I saw a question why there's no hybrid model, and maybe Daniel will chime in here too, but it really is because of the wide variety of subjects that need to be taught in a K-12 program, that it had to be one or the other for us. So that we can keep the integrity of the program. I think you said that even better earlier, Daniel. Can you maybe chime in?
Yeah, I can try and explain this. Because we don't have more, you know, each teacher teaches a particular class, like in, say, at Salish, if you have, say you had 75 students and 25 wanted to be all online, or at Blue Heron, then you'd have one teacher assigned to the online students teaching them, and the other teacher is doing the cohorts at school. With Ocean, we don't have the number. We teach so many different grade levels and classes. We can't teach online and in person. There's just, you know, there's not enough hours or time in a day. And so because we have people who, when they did the survey, said that they would want to be online, we've had to, in order to meet everybody's needs, we have to be online to teach all the classes. Is that clear? Hopefully.
Thank you. And maybe Daniel, you can just answer this if you know the student to teacher ratio I know it's a little, maybe you can explain both in the times you're teaching and then how many students overall you're conferencing with.
Sure. Ocean is staffed at a 1 to 28 FTE. So that means, like myself as a teacher, I will typically have 28 families that I work with, their students. And if we have some part-time students, it may be a few more. But the classes themselves are smaller, typically 10 to 12, sometimes maybe up to 14, and maybe a little bit bigger in the high school. But we like to keep our class sizes small so they're individualized so we can work with students. I think when I left in the spring, most classes were between 10 and 12 for the individual classes at the different grade bands. So typically we've had a K2 grade band, then we have like a 3-4, sometimes 3-4-5 grade band, depending on the numbers of students. Then we have 5-6 and a 7-8, and then our 9-12 classes, which are based on what the students need to progress towards graduation.
So I think you've addressed a couple other questions, but maybe you want to add a little bit. One parent's asking, like, if they have a 6th grader, would they meet with other kids, in their same kind of class or grade? So it sounds like at 6th grade, they would be banded together.
Yeah, I think if the numbers stay similar to what they were, or, if based on when we left, we would have a 5-6 group, which had about 12 students in it, and a 7-8 group for our middle school.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
So we have another great question about sort of if we wanted to compare this to Salish Coast's program for distance learning. So maybe Lisa Condren, the Salish Coast principal, can join us for this. So how many hours a week will happen in Salish Coast's distance learning program as compared to, the Oceans program, which would be about 6 hours a week of maybe online?
Oh, well, good evening, everyone. If you could turn to the slide, Sarah, that shows that example, that would be helpful.
I don't think I have that one prepared for right now.
Okay, well, I'll do my best to talk to it then. So we do, with our distance learning program, we will have some opportunities throughout the day for families and students to check in with teachers and to get small group instruction. It'll have a little variety depending on the family's preference and the student's needs, but there will be some kind of required check-in daily for us to be able to take attendance. And some of those days that could happen through Seesaw or Google Classroom. So that being said, we know our younger students don't do as well with the Zoom type instruction in a large group format. So we're seeking those activities to be more about getting to know the cohort of students they're working with and the social emotional check-in. So I think it probably will vary a little bit, but I would not anticipate an average of more than an hour a day for Zoom type instruction for an elementary student. And I think that's probably kind of a high-ish number.
So I think that that's one important piece is sort of any of our regular schools programs, our typical learning programs, all will require a daily check-in as part of the way we'll take attendance, whereas Ocean has a different model for how they account for attendance. So there's not necessarily a daily class online for every student in Ocean, just like they wouldn't have that live instruction daily in an Ocean program. We have a couple more questions that are good for maybe for you, Daniel, to answer about how do you assess a new student's learning level so that you can develop their plan?
Yeah, I mean, again, that varies by age level, but we might do a directed for very young kids. We'll do a DRA, a Fontes and Pinnell reading assessment. We have different assessments we use for math. We also, for the 3rd through 8th grade, we use the STAR assessment, the same one that's used in Blue Heron, I believe at Salish. Yeah, and with the writing, usually I have kids do a writing sample right on the first week of school. I can look at it, see what skills they have. you know, how they align to the Common Core, and then we'll make a plan with the parent, an instructional plan that we'll work on for moving forward.
Great. So there's a couple of questions about high school. So someone who's curious about how high school classes will work, can Daniel and Bob teach upper level courses like pre-calc, calc, AP classes, or provide curricula, or would students need to take those at the high school for distance learning?
Yeah, the upper level classes, the AP classes, and the upper level math classes would need to be done at the high school.
And then I have two questions that might be best for Sandy's to answer. So one is it possible that in-person learning would be possible within Ocean at some point during the coming school year?
Whoa.
I think with Ocean, anything is possible. Bob and I were talking about that this afternoon, and if it becomes feasible, absolutely.
And then another question, is it possible to live stream an in-person class to students who want to do distance learning? I thought maybe you could speak a little bit to the challenges with that, with live streaming classes with students in person.
So we have some FERPA violation issues going on, and we're working really hard to understand more about FERPA. I in fact, have about 3 documents I need to read through. FERPA is just the Federal Education Protection Act for families and students. And right now, our understanding is that both of those things cannot happen. Like, you can't stream into a classroom, but we're working on it. At this time, the answer is no, but we are still trying to solve that puzzle.
Parent has a question about sort of the curriculum. Their long-term hope and plan is to return back to, you know, their home school after COVID. Is the core curriculum at Ocean similar, or would it allow for a student to transition back to, you know, Blue Heron in this case, or to one of the other schools, if that was a better choice for them a year from now, or when this returns to normal?
Yes, oh, go ahead, Sandy.
No, I was going to say, Daniel, you take that one.
You know, I think that the Common Core skills we work on, the science standards, the state social studies standards are all the same. Because we teach multi-age, we may teach something like, for instance, if I'm going to do Washington State history this year with the 7th and 8th grade group. That is typically taught only in 7th grade, I think, at Blue Heron. And so sometimes things vary a little bit because I have to do things on a cycle. But generally, we're covering definitely covering the same skills, and we may not just do them in the exact order. But I think if you transition back, I haven't heard no one has come back to me and said it's been a big problem, or there's something missing. Also, we use, like, when there was a math adoption last year, we got the same math curriculum as Blue Heron was, and I believe there's a new science adoption coming online. We're going to have the same science curriculum, so we have. We use the same materials as you know, Blue Heron or the high school or Salish.
Shelby, we have a question about students with IEPs. So if an IEP indicates additional services, for example, for an elementary age kid, would those services be face-to-face at Salish?
We would have to consider each situation individually. And so what would happen is the case manager would just set up a meeting with the team. What we are doing right now at Salish Coast is it's a little bit of both. We know that we typically for reading need, you know, at least 3 sessions a week in order to provide instruction with fidelity, make sure that it's effective. So sometimes, since we have to keep children in their proper cohorts, that may occur, you know, 2 times, and then possibly on an extra Wednesday, or in some cases be in an online format. So it just kind of depends on the age of the child and the specific needs that are outlined in the IEP.
Thank you. This is probably for Daniel, just asking about how you might support a student who can move through the standards really quickly or might be a gifted and talented student, how you guys support them in Ocean, and whether they can skip ahead to the next grade level. So Kirsten, you might support that question answer as well.
Okay, I would say I can talk about the first part of that is that you know, all the projects that we design and I design particularly are very open-ended and allow for students to work at their learning edge. So, you know, if accomplishing a, you know, if they need to write, you know, a research paper and it's a, you know, a 7-page research paper is a challenge for them, they might be doing that. If they're just learning to form paragraphs, they're going to be really working on the skills at their learning edge. So I will help in our monthly conferences, really identify what the students need to progress forward. And so everybody can work at their own level. There's no restriction on what they can do. Being assigned to different grade levels is a whole, and that's different than working, you know, right at your learning edge. So I don't know, Kirsten, if you want to.
Yes, I can take it from here. I think if we're talking about a student moving to a different grade level, that has to follow our district policies for any kind of acceleration or grade level acceleration, which is separate from what Danielle just said in terms of differentiating for a child's academic needs with the instruction and the assignments provided. So even if a student is working at a higher level in their assignments, that does not mean that through Ocean you would get a grade level acceleration beyond the process that we really need to follow in all our district schools.
Great, thank you, Kirsten. So we have a couple of questions kind of about the survey and enrollment. I'll try and answer the survey piece because I'm spearheading the surveying, and if anyone from Ocean specifically needs to talk more about enrollment, you can jump in. But so if you are currently enrolled in Ocean, we're just asking that you respond to that survey. You've gotten a couple different emails because this program we're using that's easier for parents, but it times out every 2 days. So I have to keep sending you a new one until you respond. And you'll get a phone call tomorrow on Wednesday, also with the automated piece if you're not using email and you want to do that. So just we're asking every family to just tell us their preference so we can begin scheduling and planning. If you have not previously been in Ocean, you just need to start by indicating that, and then staff will follow up with you about the enrollment process. We do want to gather a little bit of information and just make sure it's really the right fit since it's really a parent partnership, but staff will follow up. So just please indicate Ocean on your survey, and then we'll be able to follow up with you. And then someone else said that they picked one of the other options on the survey and they wanted to know who would follow up to let it so that they would know which kid wanted to go in Ocean and which kid was going to pick a different option. And so we will have staff starting to make those calls this week. We were trying to pick an easy survey method that could tie to our student data. But there's no perfect survey methods. So thank you all for being patient and taking our survey. And even if it went to you twice, many of you took it twice. And just thank you guys for being patient with that process. But we will get families who needed the application as well so that they can fill those pieces out. So we just need your decision on our survey by Wednesday. So I think I've answered those. I'm just going back to look at a few other questions. There is a question about testing or assessments using the STAR assessment. If we're remote, if anyone, maybe we don't have an answer yet for this, but will parents be administering those assessments if we're remote? And do we know anything about our state testing yet?
I would say that we do not have answers about those things at this time.
They are good questions.
They are great questions. And I can say that it looks like state testing will happen only because the federal government has said we should all be in school. So from that standpoint, we still probably will be taking state testing in the fall, in the spring.
There is some questions about, can a family join Ocean if they don't have really reliable internet or they really can't join a Zoom? Would they be able to join the Ocean program? I don't know if anybody wants to try that one. Or if maybe that's something we need to look into and get some more information to families.
I can say a few things. I think that if they were unable to, if they didn't have internet or something like that, I worked with a couple families last year where I provided packets and spoke with them on the phone. It's not ideal, and I think anybody who's doing distance learning, if there's a way to resolve that, you know, with assistance, it would always be excellent. But we can definitely work with families via the phone and you know, learning packets being delivered or picked up.
And I will add, we are continuing to work with families. We will get information out when we have it to help families to get internet connection. So there's a few options for low-income families, and we will keep working. We know we have some places in our county that are not really served by any broadband providers as well. So we do have a partner in the community who's helping Stronger Towns to help get some families connected. So that's kind of another piece of the puzzle as well. Heather wants to know a little bit more about the live synchronous class offerings. Do we know yet how they're going to be structured or what those are going to look like, or what we can share right now for that? I don't know if Kirsten or Daniel, Daniel, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I don't think we, you know, obviously we're still on summer break. We haven't gotten together and sat down and planned and been really specific about that. I think they'll be a little different than last year. Just from things we've learned, but I hesitate to say anything till we've talked as a staff and planned and organized to the specifics of it. If anybody, Heather, because I know she's up on a lot of things, if she wants to you know, send me an email with ideas or, you know, information about what she's seen out there, I'm always open to that in the planning process.
Great, thank you. We have a parent who asked, if they choose to join the Ocean program and then they change their minds, could they switch back to one of the other school options, and how much time would they have to make that choice? I don't know if Sandy, you want to talk a little bit about people's options to switch in our current model?
Yes, thank you. What we're asking people to do this first round is to hang in with their choices until the first quarter's over. Given this is new for all of us, and change, you know, we usually get accustomed to change. Our brain does in about 7 to 8 weeks. So we kind of just need to let things settle a little bit and see how things are working out. But we have said that by the end of the first quarter, we would relook at options for moving.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is a great question maybe for Daniel to address. So this is a parent who, I'm hoping to reduce the amount of learning my kids do in front of a screen. Some is fine, but full-time school is too much. Does Ocean provide for instruction that is not computer-based?
Definitely the students would be able to, you know, check into the Zoom, make sure they understand all the assignments that are given, and then they can be, you know, working with their parents on their own, you know, on their own, the parts that they can do on their own, and completing them away from the screen. You know, some materials might need to be printed out in that case, you know, more materials by that family if they're not going to be working on the screen. But I think that that's definitely is possible.
So I think you sort of clarified around the commitment of 6 hours online with Ocean. It's not necessarily that it would be 6 hours solid chunks. It could be a check-in and then working some offline. There is a parent here who I'll just respond to who said they didn't get the survey. Rachel, I have your name. I'm the one who sends out the survey. You probably get emails from me. So if you want to email me directly, or I will try and look up your email and follow up with you. So you can email S.Rubenstein. And if you just tell me who your student's first and last name is and your choice, if you didn't get a survey, I can fix it for you. It's a good system. It's not a perfect system. So thank you. There's a couple of more questions about using alternative curriculums or activities rather than just using the district's provided textbooks. I don't know if, Danny, you want to speak a little bit about whether they have to use what the district provides or whether they can use their own curriculum.
Yeah, I think that's just any curriculum that they want to use. We would meet as a team and discuss and make sure it's a curriculum that meets the Common Core, you know, the state and national guidelines, and then there's options. If they have a particular curriculum they're in love with and it conforms with those and the students are going to learn the skills that are required, I don't see a problem with that. But we can't just, it has to be, it would be a team effort to discuss that, go over it. And we have found there's many great curriculums out there that do that, and individuals have brought some forth and have been very successful with them.
Great. I do see in the chat there have been some great questions about Salish Coast and whether there'll be academic instruction as well as social emotional learning. So there's some more information in the chat for people who want to understand that a little bit more, but there will be both. And we have a couple of questions about supplies. So there's a family who wants to know if there's any particular costs that come with enrolling in Ocean, what supplies families will need to have, and another family wants to know if they will be sent a supply list.
So yeah, we do have a handbook that we'll send out in the beginning of the year for all the families that enroll, and it has a supply list in it. Ocean is a public school program. There's no cost associated with it. Certain families buy certain things to enrich themselves. When we are in the non-COVID times, we did do a lot of field trips, and those field trips, families, we either raised money as a parent body to pay for them, or families paid for those on an individual trip basis. But beyond the field trips, there was no expense, no costs.
Great. And there's just a couple more questions, and we'll see if anyone else has additional questions. We have a little bit more time we can answer, so it's not too late. And I do know someone had their hand up and I forgot to call on them. So if you want to put your hand up again and I can call on you, I apologize. I'm new to this webinar hosting. Someone's wondering if you have a specific outline of the curriculum for 9th grade.
And Kirsten, maybe you can help me out with this, but I believe, just like a student in the high school, they would have an English 9. They have, a math class, depending on their math level. They have a science class. We rotate the biology and the chemistry. Bob, I'm not sure what you're teaching this year.
It's Intro to Chemistry.
Yeah,
Intro to chemistry. Kirsten, feel free to chime in. I don't have the pen and paper in front of me, so I'm running. I think we have career and life skills. Is that correct?
And health. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And health, that's one class.
And then there's elective choices. Yeah.
Elective choices.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. And I just want to point out that if you have really specific kind of program questions like that might be particular to a grade level, Kirsten's email is here and she's the counselor for that program. So she's a great resource that could tell you what the typical courses are for like a 9th grade student, for example. If you have questions that are really specific, like is Ocean good for my student, you might want to work with the contact for that student's school where they had been attending, who might know your student a little better. I do have one person, Alexis, you have raised your hand, so I'm going to click my allow to talk button and we'll see if you can ask your question out loud and how that works. Thanks for letting us try that out. Oh, I might have to unmute. Oh, there you go. Go ahead, Alexis.
Okay. I just was wondering, since my student has been in Ocean and is, as far as I'm concerned, enrolled, she has not withdrawn, is there any further paperwork that I need to do?
As long as you respond to our automated survey, and I could double check for you if you're not sure, if you send me an email, then you're all set to go. That we'll just know you're ready to continue in the Ocean program. So thank you.
Thank you.
And now there's just another question. Are there written materials or textbooks that are provided for middle school? Is any of the middle school curriculum written textbooks, Daniel? Oh, you muted yourself.
Okay, here we go. We have the Carnegie Math Program. That's a textbook. That's like a workbook textbook that the students use. Bob, maybe you want to speak to that. And also there's a science curriculum. I'm not sure what the new
we'll be needing the information on the new science. It just got approved at the end of last year, so I'll be working with the other science teachers to get that. And the curriculum, they'll also have the online portion and the connections, so they can and they'll all have their own Chromebook at home, one-to-one.
And then the language arts social studies program is it's project-based, and I have projects I will design that will have lots and lots of places for kids to connect with them. And you'll be using online resources, library resources, a variety of things. No textbook for that.
And I just want to make sure we address this part of someone's question. Does the elementary school have textbooks, and do they rent out or borrow or pay for any of the elementary textbooks?
There's no renting or paying for any of the materials that we have. We do have Saxon Math, for instance, for the K-5 kids, and we have the K2 versions are more workbooks. The 3-5 are a textbook. We also have the Jump Math curriculum. Some parents prefer to use that. And parents have used other math curriculum on their own that we have talked through and that meets their needs, child's needs for the K-5. We have the Explode the Code for early readers. We have Handwriting Without Tears. We have a whole number of things depending on your age and grade level that we use, but there's no cost associated with that.
Great, thank you. Can someone give us a short idea of what a day for an elementary student in the Ocean program might be like to keep up with all of their requirements for the week?
I can do my best. This is obviously, a new situation, but I would say I would work with the elementary family and set up a work schedule where you would probably be, starting your school day maybe at 9 o'clock. You'd be working on certain subjects, taking breaks, and progressing through the things you have to work on, and mixing in, some focused academic time with some playtime, so you're moving around. And, also working on, if you're playing an instrument, working on your instrument, your physical activities, your art activities. On days when we have, Zoom meetings or things like that, it would probably be very similar. I think the schedule is going to be different than last year, though we haven't confirmed it, where you might check in the morning. We'll do some activities together. Then the kids would go and work on different aspects of the projects that they're working on. And then later in the day, check back in. So I think the best I can do at this point.
Thank you. So a parent's just asking for some clarification. So at this time, there will be no in-person activities and no in-person group activities.
The idea that we talked about was to try and have some in-person activities. We don't have the exact times or how often that would be, but they would be more focused on social emotional things, on having fun together, group dynamics, than on the actual academic times. And I don't know if we'll be able to pull that off once a week or we'll go every other week. We'll have to work on that and build a schedule to the best of our ability. But definitely we're open to, parent input. We do have a parent board. I could work with them on fielding input from parents so that once we know who's in the program, we really want them to have a voice, be a partner with us in creating the best possible program we can have this year.
And in addition, I do think we will have some times, and maybe this will be especially focused on older students as well, but for that academic support. We just don't know yet if there's going to be any in-person instruction or new learning during those times. Our goal is, though, to have a once a week in-person academic support.
We have a question about art and PE. So if we could explain a little bit more about art and PE, and do they get instruction in art and music?
Do we know which grade level we're talking about? Because it varies really widely. For the younger kids, we have had a music program with Kristen 30th, and I've spoke with her, and she's willing to do Zoom lessons, and I'm trying to coach her to getting a YouTube channel up so she can post music instruction. So hopefully we'll continue to have that. She doesn't want to, at this point, she's not, doesn't want to do anything in person at this time. The art instruction, I'm just not sure how that's going to work in terms of, we'll try and post videos of different things, or, but we're going to be really, we have to really focus in on the core academics and then try and enhance the arts as well.
Is that true for both elementary and middle school? Kind of your answers there?
Yeah, I would say. And then for the high school kids, if they chose an art class, they have a Google Classroom where there's assignments, and they will be working on those assignments. Yeah.
And someone asked, will curriculum be mailed to the student? And I don't know that we really have a plan for that mailing, but if anyone else wanted to speak to, most likely, someone asked about Chromebooks, and we sort of addressed it. All students will be issued a Chromebook, so there would probably be a time when you're going to be assigned that you can come and do your pickup time. We haven't put out those schedules yet, and the teachers will also make a similar kind of pickup schedule for any of those physical curriculum pieces that you need. If there's a family that can't make it for some reason, we can work with families to figure out if there's a way we can get that curriculum delivered. It probably wouldn't be mailed. It's pretty heavy materials usually. And if there is a need for a weekly paper packet, that's really a very individual piece that you'd work out with your Ocean teaching team. And then there's a question, maybe Kirsten, you can talk a little bit about, is there any college counseling?
Yes, for all of our high school students, we start working on their high school and beyond plan is what it's called, which is really a Washington State requirement, and it actually starts in middle school. But yes, so there is really a great emphasis on starting to think about your post-high school options and your post-high school career choices or interests, and then looking at how are the high school courses that you can choose from, how do those how will those match the, what you want to do once you're done with high school. And so certainly for students who are college bound or college interested, then we definitely talk about what's needed to make that path happen for them.
Thank you. And then I talked a little bit about attendance, but I'm wondering if maybe someone else can speak about what is attendance in Ocean. In distance learning, we will have a daily check-in that's required for any student who's just distance learning, but in Ocean, the attendance looks a little different. I know we are also waiting for more information for some of it.
Yeah, the ALE laws require a 1 hour of contact per week. And then we have the timesheets that you keep that shows your work that you're doing, and that kind of forms your attendance. In addition, we'll just keep track of how we're, when the contacts happen and how they happen, but all those things together form your attendance.
Great. Well, I think we have answered many of the questions people have. If we didn't get your question, we have maybe just 1 or 2 more minutes, so it's not too late. We'll take your question. And if not, please follow up with the contacts on the screen. And we would love to answer those questions. We're getting your surveys out. We really appreciate everyone who's able to give us a response by the 19th, which will help the teachers clearly answer those questions about schedule. So just one follow-up on the post-high school planning, Kirsten. This is our last question for the night. Does that post-high school planning happen as a class?
Yes and no. So it kind of depends on when your student enters Ocean. So there is a class that either happens in freshman or sophomore year for Ocean students that is called a career life skills class. And that, as part of that, a lot of the pieces are worked on and developed and really kind of started. But again, depending on when that class happens, there's also then some more individualized work that's needed, or if a student enters later. We also have some additional pieces that get completed in junior and senior year in terms of resumes and cover letters. And so really It's designed to be something that gets revised and checked in about every year a student is in high school. And so it just kind of depends on how it fits in our schedule. Sometimes we can do it as part of a class, and sometimes it happens as part of the monthly conferences, and it's more individualized, as well as through just other appointments that I might have with students.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We had a really great parent and family turnout. This will be posted right away on YouTube, but I will admit the first 10 minutes won't be posted, but I've also recorded it separately, and I'll post the full posting as soon as that takes to process. It might take a couple hours, but it'll be up by tomorrow morning in case someone in your family or your friends couldn't join us, so they can get caught up before they email us their good questions. So thank you all so much. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you for the families for joining us. And we look forward to when we can all see your students, even if that's over Zoom. We're looking forward to the year starting.